Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach and I'm going to do some stuff in Rocks today. I've been working on getting source generators updated to the Incremental Generator API that was added in .NET 6. And so I did that in inline mapping. I'm going to do that now. Well, not now in Rocks, but I'm going to fix some things in Rocks that while I was working on that feature, I started noticing some stuff and I said, yeah, I need to fix that. So there's some things I've added in to the issues list, and I'm going to go through at least the first one of many, and not a lot, but many. And we'll just knock them out and see how many I'm going to do when I record. So I was in VS Live Orlando. That was fun to be in person at a conference this past week and be in front of a live audience. A little weird to look out in the audience and see people all masked up. It still wasn't like it was in the past when I've been in front of a group. It still had kind of a reserved feeling. And, it might have been just because the conference didn't have as many attendees, or what, I'm not sure. But it's a step in the right direction. It's unfortunate that it seems like cases are spiking again in general in the United States and in Minnesota as well. And the school that my kids go to, they actually gave them 2 extra days this coming week, which they already had Thanksgiving coming up. So the whole week is off for them, but they're trying to do that to in some way curb the number of cases. It would be so disappointing if they decided to go to distance learning. I get the safety involved. I get the concerns. Quite frankly, I wish they would just say your kid, now that every kid 5 and up that can be vaccinated, they should be. If you're going to be in a public building, you should be vaccinated. That's, you can say that's my opinion. That's, to me, the way it should be. And I just don't want to see my kids have to do distance learning again. I don't think anybody does. But when people are walking around not taking this seriously again, this is what happens. So in any event, in Rocks, just to show real quick what this new interface looks like. There we go. Okay. So all you do is implement this incremental generator interface, and you have one method initialize. And I haven't gone through everything within it to kind of figure out what you can do with it. How does it really work? I was following an article by Andrew Locke, which I will remind myself to put a link in the description so you can check it out, which goes through one of the examples that's already in .NET 6 that does a source generator using this new API. The documentation isn't that great. It actually looks outdated, because it was based on some initial ideas with interface names or member names that don't even exist anymore. So it's kind of hard to follow. In general, I have a plea to the team, and I get there's so many priorities that kick in, but for stuff that's around the compiler API, the documentation sometimes feels like it's really lagging, and the support is lagging, and it doesn't make for a pleasant experience. So it took, with inline mapping, a little bit of time to get my head around how do some of the things work. But I finally got it done, and now here in Rocks, it was actually much easier, a lot less effort to make that update. So basically, it seems like what you do is you have this syntax provider, which if you hover over this, you'll see that you pass in a predicate and a transform. It's like, well, what are those? What are these? And if you, of course, do this, it tells you that the first one says, should a given syntax node be transformed? And then the second one says, this is how the transform works. So what does that mean? If I come back to here and I go to my first method, this is basically saying what you want to do is narrow down the possibilities. You're given a syntax node. And so what you want to do is say, is this node a possible candidate? You can almost think of it as like the receiver that I was doing before. And you're just trying to filter out. So the best that I can do is say, is it an invocation? And is that invocation name create? And that's the best I can do at this point. You really do not want to try to do anything more than this kind of work, because this is going to be called a lot of times. But you just want to make it as fast as you can. Then the next thing you'll do is in the transform is you'll say, well, this was a possible candidate, and it's going to be of a certain type, so I can cast it this way, doing that safely. And now what I want to do is basically say, hey, is that method basically the create method from either rock or rock repository? And if it is, then I'll return it. Otherwise, I'll return a null. Okay. So that's what you get down here. We then grab all the ones that are not null. We do some other things here, and then we register source output. Now, at this point, this is almost copying and pasting a lot of code that I had before. Not a lot, but it was kind of just moving some stuff around where I was saying for all the nodes that I find, because I could find multiple invocation nodes, and what I'm really trying to get at are the nodes that actually have unique types in the generic parameters. And that's what I'm doing with the hash set, because when I get my target, I determine if it's valid and have we actually not visited it before. Because if those cases are true, then this stuff is really what I had before. I just go through and generate all the code and I'm done. And the same thing for the make. So it was really just kind of shuffling some stuff around and making it work. The thing is, I don't have a good feel yet for what exactly this is and why I'm doing it. I mean, I sort of kind of get why, but I've not done any performance analysis on the way it was before and the way it is now. And did I actually gain anything or not? So I don't know. I've just moved it this way. And now that I've got the pattern in my head, I think anytime I do it in the future, it shouldn't be too bad. One of the things I don't like is when I do the is syntax and I transform the target, that transform, if you come and highlight over here again, that seems like it has to be a syntax node. And the reason why I point that out is, because you come back out, well, actually, okay, well, I'm going to take that back, because that seems to be saying, if I come over here, that you do get a node. And now here, what comes out of it is a node. The reason why this just suddenly surprised me, again, this was me just following stuff and not really doing what I just did now and thinking about it, is what I'd really want to return from transform target is not the node. What I'd actually like to return is the invocation symbol. What I'd really like to return is, if I get down to it, is if I come into here to get target, is to look at the type arguments, return that type symbol. That's what I really want. Because I feel like I'm doing the same thing again down here with some of the casting, and I probably can get some benefit out of that. So hold on, I'm going to actually say up here with transform target, I'm going to make myself a note. For transform, look at returning type symbol. May save a step or two. Okay, and then I would do the same thing in inline mapping, because I think I'm doing the same kind of work there. So, okay. But that kind of helps, because now I can, I think, avoid when I'm coming into here. When I say get target, I would have already had the target, and I don't need to do anything at that point. So, but even then, I'm not quite sure, is that the quote unquote right thing to do? So I'll give that a whirl, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. It works. All the tests pass, and if I said it a million times already, I'm going to say it again. Tests saved my butt with this. There were so many things that I was moving around and changing and getting rid of. And if I didn't have a good test suite, this would have been a complete mess to try to figure out what's going on where. Get tests. You have to write tests. I'm very, very adamant about this is you just have to do it. I don't see how you could write code without it. So the one thing I do want to note is right now, whoops, I didn't want to do find symbol results. Go away. What I did want to do is show in the test itself, and this was what somebody showed me. You can see the comment here. Right now, I do use that NuGet package from Microsoft to help with testing. I've done that with analyzers and with source generators. It's not updated to use the incremental source generator. So there are some types that I was told about to basically pull, and that's what I did here. I'm hoping at some point that this will just be pulled into that test package, that little helper, because then I can go back and just doing what I did before, except with using this kind of approach. And then I don't have to have this code in my own code base and supporting it. I'd much rather have it be in the assemblies that I'm referencing. Okay, with all that said, let's get into fixing a bug. So I'm going to bring this one over here so we can talk about it. There we go. So this is do not make gen types created for types like pointer serializable. What does this mean? And this is one thing I didn't realize, and I may have made a point of this in some previous episodes, is that in my props file, or really in the project or anywhere, I didn't have this on. And so a lot of code analysis things I was not seeing, which was bad. Okay. So one of them was this, which is I'm automatically putting serializable on those generated argument types and stuff when I have to do that for types that you can't use in generics, such like a pointer. And when what happens is if you have an interface like this, what it does is it generates types more or less like this, where you have a field, and then I'm putting serializable there. And they should not be serializable. And there's a reason why you trip a code analysis rule, and that's bad. So really what I need to do is say, when I do these arguments for and handlers for, is just don't make them serializable. And the reason why I have that there is because I think years ago, when I was using MOQ, I was trying to use a mock type in a scenario where it was going to be serialized, and it didn't work. Something within mock I don't think supports serialization or something like that. And so I always made sure in rocks that all the mock stuff could be serialized, I think. And so that's why I put that there, but that's not a good thing to do. So I'm going to remove that. That's the bug. So this is 154. So we're going to say get a new branch, 154, remove serialization for generated types. Great. Okay. And we now have the branch. So let's go dive in and see. Now with the make, it doesn't matter because that never does anything for, like if I come back here, it doesn't do anything to generate this argument or handler information because it doesn't need to. With create, that's a different story. So I'm going to pull this over here. And now I just have to find out, where am I doing this? Here's a pointer arg type builder. And I think that actually refers to the pointer arg type. Yeah, that's argument 4. If I'd actually go to, yeah, it's an unsafe seal class. And here's where we put serializable. So what I'm curious is if I just do EFI and I do a search and I say that just in the current project, what I'm hoping is it's in 2 spots. Oh, it's more. Mock projected types, dormant builder, pointer archetypes, builder, ref-like archetype builder, serializable expectations. Those are the exceptions. Those are fine. Those are all fine. Argument, that's fine. So it's just, okay, so it's 3, looks like it's 3 spots. So that's good. So I think really all I need to do is just remove them. And then there's a test that I was actually commenting out because I couldn't run it anymore. So did I put it in? No, I actually have a, yeah, here. So this is one I'm going to keep up because this is what I need to uncomment after I unload and reload. and get this back in, because then if everything works as expected, this should just work. Okay, I'm going to keep this pinned for now because, oh, and I want to show you something real quick. I've always wondered about this, which is sometimes when I'm going through, as you can see the cursor here moving back and forth, when I've wanted to go through things in a line, sometimes I want to replace a part of a variable name or a member name or something like that. And so I've always wondered, does Visual Studio have the ability, like right now what I'm doing, like if I'm just hitting left and right, I'm just going one character at a time. If I use the control left and right, I'm going through one thing at a time. Okay, you see how it's now changed, which is good. Okay, what I wanted to say is, well, what I really want to do is when I hit the arrow, I want to go to arg, and then I want to go to type. I want to like skip over based on casing. And I guess in 2022, this exists. All I have to do is hit Control Alt and left and right. So if I do that, now you'll see how it's skipping, okay? Which is so much better at times. This is such a wonderful thing. And if you go backwards, it works the same way. And then if I hold the shift, obviously I'm going to start to just highlight those parts. That's beautiful. I love that. I'm glad that they added that because that makes things so much easier. So, okay, let's do these in order. So I'm going to just turn these off because we're not going to have them on there anymore. That one's going to go away. And then this one's going to go away. And that should be it. So we're going to close those. Yep. And what did I just say? I'm going to keep that window open because now we want to do this. And then we want to, don't pin that, go away. And now we should have a floating one down there, and we do. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is shut down and start up again. Actually, let me do build clean, just clean all the stuff out. And I'll bring it back up, rebuild it, and then once I know it's built, we'll run the tests. Actually, what I realize is as this is loading, because the generator is going to kick in and start to generate all these types, is I should see right away if this is going to work or not, because that one test class that I had commented out, now that it's back in, it should try to generate all those types without serialization, and it should just build. We shouldn't get that code analysis error anymore. So let's just say build all this. And of course, since I'm recording, it's going to take longer, but that's okay. We'll see what it does. Just take your sweet old time, Visual Studio. That's okay. By the way, I don't know if I'll do a video on this on my channel in YouTube, but I'm starting to groove on these things called .NET Notebooks. I did a kind of a lightning talk at VS Live on .NET Notebooks, and it was a lot of fun. I was able to get some custom kernels in and show a couple things in a short amount of time. And there's XPlot, which is a plot graphing package that's done in F#, but you can use it in C#. And it was pretty cool to get all this done. I remember way back when I was in grad school, I used something, I think it was called MathCAD. And it had a very similar thing where you could have text, but then you could also have equations and you could run them or solve them symbolically. And that helped with not just my thesis, but with classes as well in grad school. And that concept has always stuck in my head. So Jupyter Notebooks is something that started first, and then .NET has now added their capabilities in. So yeah, it's a cool thing. I may just start to do some stuff on this channel just to show and play with it. But as you can see, way on the lower left there, build succeeded. So now if I say run all tests, which this will take some time as always, but that's okay. If it's already done a succeeded, that means we fixed it because it was failing on the build, and putting that in that's one thing I got it fixed too, is in the editor config. Putting that in the editor config to say, if I come up here to editor config, by the way, I love that they added a UI around it, but I find it so cumbersome. I just am always opening it up with the source code editor rather than in the UI that they gave. So I think in here somewhere, I should have said, oh no, it was, oh yeah, that's right. I tried to do it in the editor config and say basically have the severity to none for that analyzer, but that doesn't seem to affect code that's being generated. At least that's what it looked like to me, which is a little disconcerting because if you're using a generator that's doing something that would cause an analyzer that you have loaded to fail, how would you be able to say in some case turn it off? You can't change the generated code. So what are you going to do then? It's a little, that doesn't seem right to me. So anyway, let's go to the Test Explorer. And yep, all of them passed. No, I'm sorry, one's still running. But I think that, like, if you look at the integration tests, yeah, I believe all of them already passed. The one that probably hasn't here is that one that just takes a long time because it's trying to come up with mock types for every single type that it finds in certain assemblies. And it should eventually finish. But this is a good sign. That means we've actually fixed this bug. It's a pretty simple bug, and then we're going to end the episode there, but that's a good thing. One last thing on the topic of, that's kind of weird. Why is that? Oh, it's because I'm highlighting it. Okay. Well, it was like white, and I'm like, shouldn't it be green? But anyway, with Rocks, I've been looking for projects that use other mocking frameworks, because one of the things I want to see is, can Rocks support what other frameworks are doing? It's not that I want to have all the same capabilities, but is there any hindrances that Rocks throws up? Because if you tried to change over to it, would you not be able to do something anymore? So that's one thing. The other one, which may be a little bit hard to do, is to say, what happens if you run the tests from one project compared to what you do with Rocks and see how they run? That might be a fun experiment to try with a couple, and that's on my list, but I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to, do that. So we'll see. So yeah, I still wish I'd say instead of total duration, like what was the duration of just running tests rather? 1.5 minutes. I don't know. Some of those statistics kind of make me get a little confused, but we fixed the bug. That's good. So I will commit it, and we'll move on to another one in the next episode. So that's all I'm going to do for this one. Thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.